The word unprecedented is seeing an unprecedented amount of use in the world at the moment. Its prevalence has roughly quadrupled over the last 2 decades. In 2022, it was Oxford's Word of the Year, and since then, it seems like everything, everywhere is unprecedented. Now obviously, the internet is not afraid to use a little bit of hyperbole and emotive language to drive clicks or panic purchases, but there is more to it than that. Within just the last month, France, Japan, and Lithuania all had their prime ministers resign in varying levels of disgrace. Nepal's was literally chased out of his country, and Brazil sentenced their former president to 27 years in prison. Mass protests are taking place right now in the UK, Spain, Italy, Siberia, Indonesia, Angola, Slovakia, and France, although that last one may be more newsworthy if they weren't protesting. The new richest man in the world, Larry Ellison, made more money in a single day than any person in history. And now, he and the number 2 spot, Elon Musk, are currently worth more than every billionaire in the world was back in the year 2000. And of course, last week's headlines were dominated by stories of political violence. Now, this channel is not about the world's problems. It's about business, finance, and economics. Unfortunately, that's exactly the point. People who are financially comfortable are not normally this discontent. You can blame this all on whatever particular politician or group you don't like, but they are a symptom of wider problems, not the origin. The unprecedented trend of unprecedented trends is longer and wider than any single person's influence, and it's showing up in more places than you realize. Debt, inequality, fraud, political polarization, rhetoric, influence, wealth, corruption, even stuff like video games. If you are playing online for some silly reason like fun, prepare to get dunked on by someone trying to make it their career. Everything is seemingly more extreme than it has ever been before. So the question is, why?
Violence has broken out during May Day protests in Paris.
Now, overseas, violent clashes on the streets of London.
Well, there have been dramatic clashes between police and protesters on the streets of Indonesia's capital.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Barcelona.
Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has moments ago said he is resigning.
The Prime Minister of Nepal has resigned.
Prime Minister of France is preparing his resignation letter.
Feed the kids and get them to school and keep the house in shape and things like that. That doesn't necessarily sound fun, nor does it necessarily sound easy. That's real life.
Unprecedented.
The best place to start this very brief summary of the escalation of everything is with video games. I promise I haven't gone completely insane here. They are genuinely microcosms of some of the biggest problems in the world in 3 simple ways. Like a lot of other things over the last 20 years, the video game industry has become a lot larger and a lot more profitable. According to data from the market research firm Inkwood, revenue from video games is now 3 times higher than revenue from film and music combined. Publishers have become much better at getting more people onto their games, and getting more out of them while they are there. But you probably already knew all of that, and honestly, an industry just getting bigger isn't a problem by itself. But you have probably also noticed that a lot of games just don't feel as fun anymore. And one of the reasons why is that it has become very competitive in the worst way possible. There is the all-too-real joke that if you sit down to play an online video game after a long, hard day of work, you are inevitably going to be matched up against someone with 700 APM and the reaction time of a Jedi, who consumes nothing outside of their IV drip and G Fuel. This is kind of a joke, but it's actually not wrong. A paper published by Cambridge and Microsoft Research discovered this problem all the way back in 2006. About 2% of players in most competitive games at the time, like Halo Combat Evolved, were so much better than the general population of gamers that they would ruin the online experience of anybody else they were matched up with. This initial research formed the foundation of skill-based matchmaking in a lot of games today, but follow-up research has found a problem. The best players are getting even better. Now this has happened for a few reasons. As the industry has developed, it has turned from a fun little distraction into something that a lot of people can make a career out of. Not just from selling games, but from competing in them either directly through esports or indirectly through streaming. People like to watch other people that are highly skilled in their area of interest, but this natural global comparison has also made it easier to see exactly how the most competitive people are playing, slowly raising the bar for everybody. Not to sound too old here, but back in my day, the closest thing we had to competitive feedback was that rumor about using strength on a specific truck. Anyway, the point is that today, by comparison, anybody who is interested can learn how the world's most competitive people play, and at least try to copy it. For the people that can't, there are always unauthorized cheats, which it may not surprise you to learn, have also become far more common, and multiple studies have suggested a reason why. A lot of people, especially a lot of young men, are finding it increasingly difficult to excel in typical areas of life. So games become an outlet for self-actualization, where they can actually excel within a narrow social outlet amongst even a small group of peers with a similar interest. Unfortunately, as games have also become more globally competitive, it's driven a lot of people to cheat in order to maintain their status in what small ways they can. Of course, another reason why video game comparisons have become so profitable is that they are also willing to sell those same advantages to people who want to take the slightly more legit route. The same research has found that the majority of microtransactions done within online games were not purchased to enhance the user experience, but instead they were made to gain acceptance and recognition from their peers within these self-contained communities. A 2023 research report even found that it was better to sell items that gamers could grind for if they had the time and skills, because that way, if they instead just paid for the items, their friends would have no way of knowing and would assume that they were just really good at the game. Put another way, if you can sell a sense of pride and accomplishment to people who can't find it anywhere else, you have a very profitable business model on your hands. But alright, I hear what you are saying. Intensifying global competition, financial exploitation, and the development of very cheap but narrow micro-communities, all supported by the rise of cheating, abusing exploits, pay to win, and the hyper-optimization of everything, that's just gaming. What's that got to do with the big problems in the world? Well, it's time to learn how money works to find out why everything has become so extreme all of a sudden. This week's video is made possible by Brilliant. Brilliant is a hands-on learning platform built to help you think more clearly and solve problems more confidently, through thousands of interactive lessons in math, science, programming, data, and AI. What sets Brilliant apart is how active the learning is. Instead of just watching videos, you're actually solving problems, experimenting with concepts, and building real intuition through bite-sized challenges that build on each other. Lately, I've been going through their digital circuits course, and it's been fascinating. You start by learning the basics of how logic gates work, and before long, you're actually designing simple circuits yourself. It feels more like building and tinkering than studying, and it's the kind of skill that makes you look at everyday tech in a whole new way. And it's super easy to stick with. Whether I've got a few minutes on my phone or time to dive in on my laptop, every session feels engaging and rewarding. If you've been meaning to sharpen your problem-solving skills or just want a smarter, more interactive way to learn something new, Brilliant's a great place to start. To learn for free on Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/howmoneyworks, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description. Brilliant's also giving our viewers 20% off an annual premium subscription, which gives you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. By looking at the numbers alone, someone might reasonably conclude that, all things considered, the world is actually in a pretty good spot right now. Poverty is down across the world, living standards are up, and apart from some isolated examples, the world is actually relatively peaceful. Even on issues closer to home, like our job market being a hot steaming mess, I would still personally rather deal with ghost jobs, AI anxiety, and office politics than spend 16 hours a day operating a Victorian-era limb remover for 3 shillings and a Christmas Traburger bonus. So then maybe we should actually just listen to the boomers telling us to stop complaining and just enjoy the relative golden age we live in, right? The fact that a few core aspects of our everyday lives have undeniably become much better over the past 80 years is actually a really important ingredient in the unrest we are seeing today. But before we get to that, we need to consider it alongside another ingredient: the media. It's tempting to conclude that the media is just making everything sound worse than it is because outrage, fear, and vindication sell subscriptions and drive clicks more than a level-headed discussion about how things are actually kind of okay. But that's only half true. The traditional media hasn't just now figured out that big scary headlines are good at selling newspapers. They have been doing this for a really long time. If anything, back in the good old days, they arguably hyped up stories even more. Yeah, you were probably sick of every single little scandal in the world being dubbed Coldplaygate, Donutgate, Signalgate, Deflategate, Beergate, or the least creative of all, Gatesgate. As someone who mostly makes content about broken business structures and misaligned incentives in the financial industry, it would be mighty hypocritical of me to not acknowledge that sometimes dull but important content matter needs an exciting headline to get people to care about it. In fact, over the last week, I've been using all of you as little guinea pigs to prove this point. I took last month's video on private equity and ran an A/B test using 2 different titles. One was a typical interest-building title, and the other was very plain and descriptive. Unsurprisingly, the first option absolutely crushed the second. Oh yeah, and as an aside, this tool is the reason why you probably noticed the same video from bigger creators being shown to you with 20 different combinations of titles and thumbnails. But anyway, the thing is, if the actual Watergate happened today, it wouldn't be a year-long scandal like it was in the 70s. it would probably remain in the news cycle for about a week before people got bored or the next big thing came along. If you don't believe me, I am going to show you a chart that might make you lose faith in the attention span of the general public. Yeah. What this means is that if anything, individual media outlets are not making as big of a deal of events as they would have in the past. However, there are also a lot more outlets in total. The comedian Tim Minchin probably said it best, that opinions are like apples, and that everybody has one. What he left out, because it was a speech at a college, is that most of them also aren't worth looking into. The internet and social media in particular has democratized the megaphones that people can use to get attention, so naturally it's become a bit noisy. In such an environment, sometimes the only way to stand out is to have a take that is more extreme than everybody else. Thanks to engagement-based algorithms, you are mostly going to be fed a diet of two particular content dishes. The first is people telling you stuff that you want to hear and already agree with. And the second is caricatures of the other side that are so unbearably dumb that it reinforces your beliefs. Our monkey brains really hate having our ideas genuinely challenged. So platforms that just want people to spend time on them don't present challenges. The most profitable way to deliver information is to turn it into a personalized propaganda department. That's always been true. Technology has simply made it possible. Ideas in such a setting are allowed to go a lot further than they would have with a wider audience that could give some pushback. So yeah, new technology is hijacking our mental weaknesses, and traditional media coverage is just desperately trying to stay relevant in the attention economy. I know these changes probably aren't shocking you, but so far this is all ignoring the most important point of all. The world has become more extreme. We live in objectively the best period of history ever, but these last 80 years have been an exception rather than the rule. They have been defined by exponential economic development and a relatively egalitarian system that has valued and rewarded human labor. We had a lot of economic tailwinds, like a large young population that has received a good education, women entering the workforce for the first time in mass, effectively doubling the labor pool, new technologies, and an abundant supply of easy energy from fossil fuels. A lot of these perks basically let us play Global SimCity on easy mode for a few glorious decades. But now, a lot of those same issues are working against us. The labor market has become ultra-competitive. Fossil fuels are coming with unexpected debuffs, and new technologies are getting more expensive to develop while providing more questionable benefits to society. The biggest technology companies of the last decade have effectively been dedicated to replacing existing industries by skirting regulations with an app instead of building new industries from scratch. Human labor has also just become easier to replace. I don't even mean this in a "they took our jobs" way.
Oh, they took our jobs! They took your jobs! They took your jobs! They took your jobs!
As technology has become more user-friendly, it has become easier to replace people in basic roles without having to worry about a lengthy retraining process. And speaking of an abundant labor force, those young, well-educated workers in the past have also turned into old, wealthy retirees today who are largely unwilling to give up any of their comforts or power to keep the system going. This goes all the way to the very top with some of the oldest leaders in history who have one last chance to get into the history books and aren't going to be around for the consequences of their actions. For the first time in history, there are a lot of people that now actually have something to lose, and they are seeing signs that they may be losing it. To use a crude metaphor, a roller coaster that stays on the ground isn't going to be that extreme. But our society has been ratcheting up a ramp of progress for a long time now. Even the hint of things starting to crest is extremely scary. Sure, there are people at the front with their megaphones screaming a little bit louder than they should be, but that doesn't mean they are wrong. Now, if you want further proof of how special these last 80 years have been, go and watch this video on our History channel next to find out if inequality has only ever gotten worse over time. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.